Good morning to you all. Welcome back to our Namaste Village experience. We're so glad you could join us. It is Thursday morning, and this will be my final day of the week. Tomorrow, Penny, Honey, and Vicky will come and wrap things up for the week. And I'm going to begin with a little bit of a wrap up myself because I want to talk about something that we started talking about on Monday. And that is the master, how the master acts, how they share, how they think, is a way of guiding us into the same experience or welcoming us into the experience of our own mastery. Isn't that why we're here? Not to have some false idea of what a master is, how they think, or what mastery is, which is usually based on the ego's idea of never making a mistake, because somehow deep down we know that mistakes will always be made. We'll always be changing and growing and adapting. So it's not about not making mistakes, but the way that we enter into each moment. So I started off the week on Monday with a beautiful example of what this means from something I read from James Finley, who I like very much. Let me read just a little bit of that again so we can get back into the spirit of our own mastery. He wrote, "The master limps, but is not handicapped by limping. The master is weak as you are, or perhaps even weaker. But the master is not weakened by weakness, because the master knows it's just weakness. Why be weakened by weakness? We are weakened by our weakness because we believe that our weakness has the power to name who we are. For we are crippled by the power of our own weakness. The point is, the master is not confused about being confused. Why be confused about confusion if it's just confusion? I love that. It takes all of these ordinary experiences that we share every day, confusion, weakness, wondering, all the things that might seem to weaken us or to derail us from the experience of our own mastery. But the master just overlooks them. It's just weakness. It's just whatever it is. It does not determine anything about who I really am. In fact, I wrote here, the master's experience is not determined by what happens around them or what seems to change around them. Their experience is determined not by what changes, but through their recognition of that which never changes. So it's a beautiful way of understanding our own mastery, or maybe relaxing into it, which is what I think we are called to do every day. It is why we join here in the morning. It's why we come together to listen to, silly stuff like this. And it's silly only because sometimes we hear it in one ear and it goes right out the other ear, instead of hearing this and fully embracing and embodying it. Yes, why do I have to be weakened by my own weakness? It's just weakness. Or why be confused by confusion? It's just confusion. It's no big deal. We like to think that there's a great change that happens when we achieve this level of mastery. Like, I'm going to talk in a certain way. I'm going to act different than I acted before. No, chop wood, carry water. You're going to do almost all of the same things you did before. In fact, you may act very much the same as you did before. But you'll see through that which you saw before. You'll see through all of the illusions, all of the challenges, all the things that you thought limited you, and realize that in reality you could never be limited by anything. So I want to talk now about another wonderful story, and this is a story about one of my very favorite people, which is the Christian Trappist monk Thomas Merton, and a conversation that he had with the Zen Buddhist monk Suzuki. Many of you may have heard of Suzuki, very famous Zen monk. And this is something that Thomas Merton wrote in a special publication that was being done by his alma mater, Columbia University in New York. And they asked a number of people who had graduated from Columbia to write something, people who had achieved some level of fame or greatness, to write something that they would publish. And I'm sure they were very curious what this Trappist monk was going to write. So I want to read just a little bit of that here. This is what Thomas Merton wrote. In a room in Butler Hall at Columbia University, overlooking some campus buildings, this is where he begins. The Zen master Suzuki, with his great bushy eyebrows and hearing aid that aids nothing. Mihoko, his beautiful secretary, has to repeat everything to him so that he can hear it and understand. And she is also making tea. Now, let me just stop there for a moment, because as you may know, the tea ceremony in this culture is very important and very, very specific. Every little detail of how the tea is made, how the tea is served, how the tea is to be drank. Everything down to its finest detail is predetermined, because this is the way that one in this culture enjoys a tea ceremony. They don't just pour the tea like we might and sit and drink the tea and gulp it down, sip it slowly, whatever we choose. No, it's not at all like that. It's very, very specific. And so Thomas Merton goes into this meeting. He's going to have tea with this great Zen master. Now, you have to remember that Thomas rarely leaves Gethsemane, his monastery. One of the vows that a Benedictine monk takes is that of stability. They're very much attached to their monastery and rarely leave. Thomas is probably given more latitude than others because he has become a very well-known figure for his writing, for his teaching. And so he's been given permission to have this tea ceremony there at Columbia University with the great Zen master Suzuki. So here he is now, expecting this highly ritualized experience. He's going to be able to see and to be with this great master in just simply having a cup of tea. But really not just simply having a cup of tea, because he's expecting everything to be very ritualized, every movement. So that's the backdrop. So once again, Mihoko, Zen Master Suzuki's beautiful secretary, has to repeat everything to him so he can hear it. She's making tea, a tea ceremony, but a most unconventional one. This is Merton speaking. For there are no rites and there are no rules. I drink my tea reverently and attentively as I can, following the proper customs. Mihoko then goes to the other room, and Suzuki, as if waiting for her to go, hastily picks up the cup and drains it in one gulp. Shocking. This is not at all what Thomas Merton has expected. Then he continues by saying, it was at once as if nothing at all had happened, and as if the roof had flown off the building. But in reality, nothing had actually happened. A very, very old, deaf Zen monk with bushy eyebrows had just drunk a cup of tea, as though with the complete wakefulness of a child, and as though at the same time declaring with utter finality, this is not important. Following the details, following the prescribed customs is not important. And maybe this was an even greater teaching that Suzuki gave the great Christian monk, Thomas Merton. Don't think that you have to follow every rule, because thinking that you have to follow the rules in order to be awake is in itself what it means to be asleep. You're just sleeping within a certain parameter. I have to do this because this is what I'm told to do, and I have to follow what I'm told to do, and I have to do everything in the right way. And here's this great Zen master who waits till his secretary leaves the room and then just gulps the tea right down, as if saying to Merton, don't worry about any of this. In fact, whatever you do, every act, however small, can teach you everything, provided you see who it is that's acting. Isn't that the key? To see and to know who it is that's actually acting? It's not the personality, is it? It's something much deeper. And Suzuki, with his awakened self, knew that it didn't matter whether he drunk the tea according to the customs or whether he just drunk it right down to teach Thomas Merton a cute little lesson. What really mattered was simply knowing who he was, knowing who it was that is acting. So when you look gently behind the doing, however it looks or appears, you discover that the true lesson is never in the action itself. It's never in what you do, but in the one who imagines that they are the actor. That's where the lesson is going to be found. The moment this subtle shift occurs, the simplest movement becomes a doorway into boundless knowing. Every movement, washing a cup, reveals the nature of freedom. Speaking a word uncovers the roots of silence. Taking a breath exposes the one who has never really needed air. In this way, the world becomes a living scripture, every gesture a verse reminding us that we are in the awareness, that we are the awareness, the truth of who you are. This is the awareness which causes all actions to rise and fall, untouched, unchanged, quietly whole. So whether you gulp the tea down or whether you follow the custom, every little action prescribed, in the end makes no difference at all. The only thing that makes a difference is that we know who we know, and who we know is our true self. And this is what is being revealed to us today. So I love this little story with Thomas Merton and Suzuki. I think these little Zen stories can teach us so much. So I'm going to turn it over to Penny Honey now. Vicky is not here today, but also I want to say that today at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, many of you may have received an email about this already if you're on my email list. The publisher of The Annihilated Self has invited me to come and do a discussion on that book. It'll be guided by another teacher. I think Vicky might possibly be there if she can make it, and I want to invite all of you. So hopefully you got that email and you can find the link there. So, Penny Honey, I'm going to turn it over to you and hear what you want to say about Zen tea ceremonies.
Mm. Tea ceremonies, that in my world translates to Sunday dinner. You know, okay, who knows about Sunday dinners, right? Oh, sometimes the most fun you could possibly have at grandma's house. And other times you think, oh my. And both life-giving and full of love and full of light. Whether you drink the tea fast or you stay present to the ritual, we give it value, right? That's what happens is we give it value. And as I move closer and closer to that, every little move doesn't matter. That's a leap for me, James, because I do give a lot of attention and energy to detail. So as I was sitting here and listening, thinking, "Oh, how am I gonna align with that, or how am I gonna get into that?" I said, "Don't." That's what I heard. Don't just do that. Honor the process, because I stay a little in the detail, in the minutia. I think where the lesson in that for me is, as I sat here, is to remember, as they tell us in the Course in Miracles, there are no degrees to miracles. And when I get comfortable with moving toward that every little detail doesn't matter, as I get comfortable with releasing that and dissolving into that expression, I start to notice that when they say it doesn't matter, I think for me to get comfortable with that, I need to hear there's no degree to miracles. See, so even the minutia is serving its purpose. And Brother Lawrence would remind us to see the presence of God in it. There you are. There you are. In it, being the awareness. And then sometimes for me, slipping out of it. I do. I ask this question. I would ask this question of my children when I was raising children. Does that bring you peace? Does that bring you to love when you're a little fired up and you're a little irritated and agitated? Does that bring you peace? Does that move you to love? Of course, they roll their eyes. Sometimes I'd get some really cute little clever answer. But my response is this. As we step into realizing that the rituals, even the teachings, the practices, those are tools on the path to realizing we don't need any of them. See, those are supporting us in the knowing that we don't need those things. Have you ever noticed how sometimes we go through these phases and we're doing this, and this is the focus, and this is what we're doing, and this is the way, and we're absolutely right about that in that moment. And then that fades away. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but then I get a little judgmental of myself. Why can't you hang on to that? Why aren't you consistent? I am the only one, right, that has those thoughts. And then I can celebrate when I remember that is me transforming and releasing into the next expression that best serves my transformation. If it brings you peace and it moves you to love, these are the questions I think masters would ask. Then do more of that if it does no harm. If it brings you to peace and it moves you to love, do more of that if it does no harm. This, I believe, is what we speak about, James, on a daily basis. Nothing has happened. And yet, it feels that everything counts. And then it doesn't. And we return to the great nothingness of that allness and all those nesses that we talk about, right? And all those shuns, those connections, those relations, all those things. And we return back to that place where there is no degree to the miracle that we are. And there is no limit. See, having no degree and no measurement of what is minutia and what isn't, having no degree and no attachment to that, brings me back to all. I think we get to return there in that line of thinking. I do in this moment, and then that too shall fade. We talked one time in one of these sessions about that verse of it came to pass, right? This came to pass. This came to pass. All the teachings, all the levels of knowing, all the levels of confusion just came to pass. And again, we move back to the great master saying, it's just confusion. It's all energy. It's all expression. It's all God. So it's just confusion. It's just fear. That one's a little tougher. I felt that. It's just fear. And in the Course in Miracles, we're reminded to consider it's either love or fear. And you know, the more I study, I feel myself a little oof when I hear that, because I do believe that eventually I will recognize that it's only love, that the fear has come, that the disappointment has come, that the concern is present, because I need to remember there's no degree to miracles and there's no degree to love, because it's infinite, ever present, omnipresent, omnipotent, omni, right? And there's no separation. When we watch the teachings of Thomas Merton and Suzuki, when we look at those, we realize the bigger demonstration in that coming together is to remind us that there's no separation. And those little lessons, those stories and those gifts that we receive from their coming together, right? Important, not important, because nothing really happened. And we witnessed that by being in the oneness with it. And we allow it to bless us, and then we release it. There is no degree, there is no limit to the light that you are, to the love that you are, to the light that we are, to the love that we are. And when I say we, I mean all. Take that into your day. Just when it feels like it's a little tricky. Yeah, no degrees, no separation. Just you being the divine expression. So, James, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Penny, honey. Beautiful. You know, as you were speaking, I was reminded of a song that many of you may have heard from the 60s, if you remember that period, by a singer named Donovan, who said, first there is a mountain, and then there is no mountain. The mountains are huge in our minds if we believe that they're huge in our minds, uncrossable, unmountable. But then there is no mountain. The things that seem to have blocked us or held us back suddenly, like that, are gone. Jesus said if you only had faith, you could move mountains. I don't know if he meant literal physical mountains or the mountains that we have in our minds, the things that we think stop us or claim us or distract us. Even the simplest little distractions are mountains in our minds until we realize they're just mountains in our minds. That's the thing I like about this teaching is why worry about being weak? It's just weakness. Why worry about anything? It's just whatever it is. But you are forever who you are. And who you are is whole and perfect and complete here and now. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain. So just let the mountain fade. Let all of those limitations dissolve. We don't need them anymore unless you want to hold on to them for a little while, like the customs of your Sunday dinner or your tea ceremony. They're fine. There's certainly nothing wrong with them. But you don't have to cling to them either, thinking that they make you who you are. The only thing that makes you who you are is what you are, which is love. So cling only to that. Let that love guide you and lift you in the difficult moments, but there's nothing to worry about because they're just difficult moments. They come and they go like mountains. So I hope you can join me later today. It would be lovely to have some of you there as well. And to all of this beautiful week that we have shared, we say together, Amen, 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 y punto. Have a beautiful day, each and every one. Namaste.